It's over. 35 Bundesliga games unbeaten, and finally Leverkusen fell in a 3-2 defeat to RB Leipzig. But what did Leipzig do differently to the 35 teams before them, and what did they have in common with the team that last beat Leverkusen, Atalanta? Let's take a look. Leverkusen in trademark fashion were looking to dominate the ball with considered build-up from the back three, supported by their double pivot. But much like Atalanta, Leipzig's ability to match Leverkusen man-to-man around the pitch meant that they could press aggressively high up, with the wingbacks pushing up onto their opposite numbers, and importantly, their first outlet options were also covered through the center. What this meant is that when Leipzig reacted to the right press triggers, such as a pivot having their back completely to goal when receiving the ball, they were able to constantly cause turnovers, leading to potential shooting opportunities. Alonso had to react, and he did this by trying to break the man-to-man press through strategic overloads, namely Kovar getting more and more involved in the build-up play, so that Leverkusen now had a back four. Tapsoba loves to be aggressive on the ball, so this would be the perfect opportunity to push him to right back and give freedom to Frimpong to move higher up. This would make Leverkusen extremely lethal if the chip ball came over the winger's head. Marco Rose was a step ahead, however, as Leipzig didn't remain in a flat three in the press. Sesko would press, and crucially Openda would start on Tar, using a curved run to press the keeper so that Tar remained in his cover shadow, allowing them to cover 3 men with just 2 players. So now Xavi Simons could remain wider on Tapsoba, cutting out another outlet option. But in general, Leipzig faced the same problem that almost every team that man-to-man presses does. They are consistently one dribble or one bit of inventive movement away from having their pressing structure broken completely, which we did see at times, particularly through rotations in the front line. Boniface consistently moved wide to draw a centre-back out of position and create a channel for a runner, and we saw him use his target man ability to hold off defenders to then turn his man and free up the attack. But when Leverkusen were attacking high up, the man who made their life hell was Lois Openda, and the way he got into dangerous positions somewhat mirrored Lookman for Atalanta, and Leipzig took a few plays out of the Atalanta handbook, while Alonso, having learnt his lesson, looked to adapt to this. So let's take a look at Leipzig in possession. One of the reasons Atalanta was the only side to topple Leverkusen is that they matched up Leverkusen formationally, but in the build-up, Atalanta dropped one of their pivots into the defensive line to create a back four in the build-up, and looked to overwhelm the aggressive Leverkusen press. Against Atalanta, Leverkusen took the riskier strategy. A pivot would stick to his man, creating a 4 versus 4, but this was extremely high risk, as the remaining midfielder was left with a chasm to defend, which did not end well. Atalanta would simply drop their forwards to create the overload, meaning as long as this first wave of pressure was bypassed, Leverkusen was struggling. Having learnt his lesson, Alonso looked to adapt. Leipzig were looking to recreate that same ploy, with Campbell playing as defensive midfielder, dropping into the back line, hoping to draw out a Leverkusen midfielder to recreate that isolation. But wiser from their match against Atalanta, Leverkusen were reluctant to push a pivot higher up in the press. But this created a new problem. Leverkusen were now 4 versus 3 in the build-up phase, and Leipzig were looking to pounce. Their left centre-back, Lukeba, looked to exploit this. He was extremely aggressive with the ball. As the extra man in the 4 versus 3 build-up, he would push up quickly, looking to break past the first line of pressure. From there, he now had the option to pass into a dropping forward who was looking to accentuate their advantage. Failing that, Lukeba was even aggressive enough to make unchallenged runs all the way into the final third to cause enough chaos to unlock the Leipzig defense. Having a centre-back temporarily pushing up was great for RB, but with the centre-back having to drop back in more often than not, they did need a more creative way to overload the midfield. David Raum, the left wing-back, was vital to this. He was extremely aggressive at times, pushing high and wide to effectively free up Xavi Simons into an inside position, and he tended to drop into the pivot role. This could allow Simons to find some space and showcase his creativity. But Benjamin Sesko was no stationary forward either, and he would also look to drop into the midfield whenever possible. So Leipzig now had a genuine 3 versus 2 in the midfield. So So why did the centre-backs not follow up? Well, the X-factor in this match was Openda's offensive performance. His combination of strength and speed made defenders hesitant to step out, because when they did, he was hungry to run into any space created in behind. But when they stayed deep, the midfield became overloaded, creating opportunities for these men to receive between the lines. All of this was exacerbated because the Leverkusen pivots were not always best placed defensively, because when Leverkusen were on the ball, in attack, Xhaka in particular tended to support the attacking sequences. So in the case of a quick transition by Leipzig, there was huge potential for space in the midfield to be found, especially with the spectre of Openda running in behind. Goals 2 and 3 are great examples of the last few points. Following the corner, Alex Garcia is still high up, and this leads to chaos. The Leipzig man is now free in acres, and the second pivot Xhaka has opted to track Simmons, who is free wide as Frimpong is high on the attack. This time the centre-back pushes out to try and compact the space, so when Sesko receives between the lines, there is more space in the back line. Openda's excellent movement comes to the fore, allowing him to be found, leading to the goal. For the winning goal, the pivots had come across to support the left-hand side overload as always, and this is usually used to free up Frimpong. Simmons identifies an opportunity as there are acres between the lines to make a run. With Xhaka sucked towards the ball, Garcia is 2 versus 1 down, and after some combination play, Simmons finds that man Openda to end the legendary run. So, does this defeat mean Leverkusen are suddenly exposed, or that Alonso's tactics have been figured out? Not at all. On another day, given the balance of play, Leverkusen could have easily won this exact match. But it wasn't another day. It was today, so they didn't. I'm curious to hear down below, do you think that this defeat is a sign of things to come or merely a blip? And for the managerial tactical score, both managers earn a 6.5, but drop your ratings below. And check out this video, examining why Alonso's Leverkusen was so special last season.